Hi friends, I will be taking your science subject. Today we are going with the chapter is reproduction in plants. We can touch the topics, types of flowers, pollination, fertilization in this chapter. Children, before enter to our topic, once remember the parts of the plant. This is the plant, this is root system and this is shoot system. Roots, stem, fruit, leaf, flower. These are the parts of the plant, main parts of the plant. Reproduction. Reproduction means the production of new individuals from their parents is known as reproduction. But how do plants reproduce? Plants also produce their young ones in different modes. There are different modes of reproduction in plants. Plants are very useful to us. We can get food, wood, fibers, medicines, so many things we can get from plants. So, how the plants reproduce their young ones? Those are two types, asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction means new plants grow from their same parent through leaves, stems, roots from that. For example, potato, bryophyllum, carrot like that. Asexual reproduction means the process by which plant produce seeds, through seeds. So that is sexual reproduction. For example, hibiscus, watermelon and so on. Vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation is an asexual method of plant reproduction that occurs in its leaves, roots, and stem. This can occur through fragmentation and regeneration of specific vegetative parts of the plant. Specific vegetative parts of the plant, it can be grown to a new plant. That is called vegetative propagation. In this process, there are two methods, natural and artificial. There are two methods, natural and artificial methods. I just said in vegetative propagation there are two types, natural method and artificial method. This is the natural method. This occurs when plants grow and develop naturally without any human interference. New plants may emerge from the roots, stem and leaves of the parent plant. In this process, new plants can grow from the roots, stem and leaves of the parent plant. In vegetative propagation, how the plants grow through the stems. Plants such as ferns, ginger, bamboo, banana, kenna, turmeric are propagated from underground stems that grow horizontally. The underground stems are called rhizomes. Rhizomes. How the plants grow through the roots. New plants emerge out of swollen modified roots known as tubers. Buds are formed at the base of the stem. Potato is a modified stem. It is a tuber. Look at here the example. This is the potato. It has buds. The starting point of the buds are called eyes. Also eyes. When the potato is containing a bud, it is planted into the soil. It will grow into a new plant. It will grow into a new plant. Runners. This is the another way of growing plants in vegetative propagation. Many plants have long and thin stems are called runners. It will grow horizontally parallel the ground. For example, strawberry and most types of grasses. And next type, suckers. This is also similar to runners. Example, mint plants. Next one, bulbs. Bulbs have an underground stem to which the leaves are attached. These leaves are capable of strong food. The center of the bulb contains an apical bud that produces leaves and flowers. Shoots are developed from the lateral buds. For example, onion, garlic. These are the examples of bulbs. They contain buds which grow into new plants. Leaves. Leaves of a new plant get detached from the parent plant and develop into a new plant. For example, bryophyllum. The next type in vegetative propagation, that is artificial method. This is a type of vegetative reproduction carried out by humans on the fields and laboratories. The most common types of vegetative reproduction is cutting. This is the artificial method in vegetative propagation. This is a type of vegetative reproduction carried out by humans on the fields and laboratories. Money plant and rose plant are propagated by stem cuttings. Grafting. The next artificial method is grafting. In a grafting, a healthy growing portion of a certain plant is attached to another plant, that is called stalk. The stalk is mostly hardly plant which grows well and faster in the region. Grafting is commonly used for propagating trees and shrubs. Look at here the example. He is cutting a hardly well growing plant and he attach it to another plant. Then it will be grow into a new plant. Layering. This is the next artificial method. In this, the stem of the plant is bent to the ground and covered with the soil. Adventitious roots emerge from the plant parts covered with the soil. This attached stem with developing roots is known as layer. For example, jasmine. Look at this in this picture. This is the bent stem. The new plants are growing through the stem. This is called layering. Tissue culture. This is the next artificial method. In this, the plant cells from different parts of a plant are cultured in the laboratory to develop a new plant. This technique is helpful in increasing the number of rare and endangered plant species that are unable to grow under natural conditions. Tissue culture based on the principle that a new plant can be grown from a single cell. Tissue culture of bananas and tomatoes are very common. Children, we discussed about the methods in asexual reproduction. The next one is sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction in flowering plants involves the production of male and female gametes. The transfer of the male gametes to the female ovules in a process called pollination. After pollination occurs, fertilization happens and the ovules grow into seeds within a fruit. Flowers are the reproductive parts of a plant. Stamens and pistil. These two parts are the main parts of the production in plants. Types of flowers. Bisexual flowers, unisexual flowers. It contains male and female gametes. For example, hibiscus rose pea. Bisexual flowers also called complete flower. Unisexual flowers contains male or female gametes. For example, papaya and bitter gourd. See the complete flower. These are the parts of the flower, stamen and pistil. These two parts are the most important parts in reproduction of the plants. In stamen there are anther and filament. This is the anther and filament. This is stigma. This is style. This is ovary. Ovary has ovule. These are the petals of the flower. Petals also called corolla. These are the sepals. Sepals also called calyx. Stamens are the male reproductive part. Pistil is the female reproductive part. Anther contains pollen grains which produce male and female gametes. A pistil consists of stigma, style and ovary. Ovary contains one or more ovules. The female gametes or the egg is formed in an ovule. In sexual reproduction, a male and a female gamete fuse to form a zygote. Based on this, a flower can be either unisexual flower or bisexual flowers. Unisexual flowers. Flowers which contain either only pistil or only stamens are called unisexual flowers. For example, corn, papaya and cucumber produce unisexual flowers. Bisexual flowers. Flowers which contain both stamens and pistil are called bisexual flowers. For example, mustard, rose and petunia have bisexual flowers. Pollination. This is the process of reproduction. The process of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of a flower is called pollination. The process of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of a flower is called pollination. The pollination is two types, that is self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination. The transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or flowers of the same plant is called self-pollination. It takes place in the same flower. Look at here. This is anther, this is stigma. The pollen grains transfers from the anther to the stigma in the same flower or the flowers of the same plant. That is called self-pollination. Cross-pollination. The pollen grains from a flower of one plant are transferred to the stigma of a different plant. That is called cross-pollination. Here there are two different types of flowers. I will explain briefly. Cross-pollination. Look at here. Two types of flowers here. A pollination where the pollen transfer take of the same plant or different plants of the same species placed between the anther and the stigma of different flowers. This is the anther, this is the stigma. Pollens transfer from this anther to stigma in this same flower. This is self-pollination. And here this is cross-pollination. The pollen grains from the anther to another flower stigma. This is called cross-pollination. Generally, pollination takes place with the help of certain agents, so-called pollinators. They include insects, water, wind, birds and animals, etc. Agents of pollination, I will show a picture. For example, look at here. This is the cross-pollination by bees. This is one flower, this is another flower. These are the pollen grains. Pollen from stamen sticks to a bee as it visits a flower to collect food. The bee travels to another plant of the same type. It is traveling with the pollen grains. Pollen on the bee sticks to a pistil of a flower on the another plant. This is the next picture. For example, agents of pollination by animals. Honeybee drinking nectar from a foxglove flower. Ruby-throated hummingbird drinking nectar from a trumpet creeper flower. This is the fertilization. After the pollination, the next process in reproduction of the plants, that is fertilization. Look at here the parts of the plant. This is the anther and this is the stigma. Fertilization, the process of combining the male gamete or sperm with the female gamete or ovum. The product of fertilization is a cell called zygote. Fertilization, the process of fusion of male and female gametes is called fertilization. This is the second stage of process of reproduction. Look at here, pollen grains enter into the pollen tube. This is the pollen tube. and this is zygote formation. Once a pollen grain reaches stigma, it begins to form a tube-like a structure called the pollen tube. The pollen tube enters the stigma and travels downwards through the style and reaches the ovary. The pollen tube enters the ovary and penetrates into the ovule. In ovule, the pollen tube releases the male reproductive cells or male gametes, which fuse with the female reproductive cells or the female gametes. Then the result is formation of zygote. Fertilized female reproductive cell is developed into a seed. Then the new plant will become from that seed. This is the reproduction process of plants. Thank you friends. If you like my video, please subscribe, like and share.